Welcome everybody to Carlin The Morning. With me, Carlin Coin, right now, in the morning, November 18th, 2017. Talking about news, talking about politics. Let's start out light today with a little bit of news. There was a sporting affair this weekend, boxing match with Triple G versus Alvarez, which proved once and for all that boxing is not a sport. And I'm not saying this for the reason Chael Sonnen said. He said if Mayweather doesn't knock out McGregor within 30 seconds, that proves it's not a sport because they're top guy versus someone who never done it before, blah, blah, blah. I thought that was a faulty criticism. It lacked an understanding for what boxing is. You know, boxing is more about not being punched than it is about punching. And I don't fault boxers for not just being punchers and fighters. There is a sweet science to it. There is something there. But aside from what the boxers are doing, the judges are corrupt. Or it's possible that they're extremely incompetent. Like, you know, they had a stroke during the match and just started writing down random numbers. Because this match was viewed by most people as a solid win for Triple G. But it was judged a draw. One judge, so it was a minority draw. One judge had it, 114 to 114. One judge gave Triple G a single round advantage. And the other judge gave the guy, Alvarez, gave him an 8-round advantage. The guy most everyone else thought had lost the match handily. So, just the fact that these judges are that far off base, even if we ignore that most everyone thought Triple G won the fight, there's no way to reconcile the numbers being this far apart. That the judging is that much of a shit show, where this is, the second highest promoted boxing match of the year. And the first highest promoted boxing match was something of a freak show. It had the greatest boxer of all time versus a guy who had never boxed. That was the biggest fight of the year, the Mayweather-McGregor. But this was the second biggest fight of the year, and this was like the real boxing match. Like, oh, you want to, you got your beak wetted by that McGregor shit. Now see what real boxing looks like. And it's just a travesty on the scorecards. So, boxing has no central unified body. That's why they end up doing the Muhammad Ali Act. It's a federal law that was put into place to protect boxers because they were just being abused like crazy. People like Don King, one of the things he would do, he'd end up walking away with like 80% of the purse because he would force the fighters to train at his gym and he would do this and that, blah, blah, blah. It's just a skeezy, it used to be run by the mafia for a long while, and now it is not any less corrupt, as evidenced by these scorecards. So what I'm stating now is not a controversial opinion, but as a fan of MMA and boxers tend to look down their nose at us. Like, you're just barbarians, human cockfighting. You don't know what a real sport looks like. Well, at least in our sport, the judges know how to judge the fights. So, that's a fun, light little story. And I still enjoy watching boxing time to time, but there's just no credibility there. This is rough. It's rough for boxing fans. That sport has been on the decline for a while now, and I'm curious to see how they'll try to recover from this. Because this was the boxing match of the year, and it is a widely agreed upon travesty the way this card was judged. So, let's see how the boxing community moves forward. I wish them the best, but at the same time, fuck those guys. Alright. In more serious news, Trump retweeted a GIF of him hitting a golf ball juxtaposed with Hillary Clinton falling over. It made it look like, he hit her with the golf ball, she fell over. And this is big news, everybody. So, first I'm going to give you a little, background on what I think this tweet was about. So one, it's just Trump being like, it's a visual thing, just standard sales tactic. Trump is good at working in the visual. That makes people think more, makes them pay more attention to whatever his message is. If it's not some ethereal thing, if it's something you can see, and it's something with him looking big and strong, swinging that golf club, and then it has Hillary Clinton knocking over. So and the specific, that part of the clip of Hillary Clinton boarding a plane and then tripping and falling is not the first time I'd seen that. People on the right were sharing this clip a lot, along with a number of others questioning Hillary's health. And, so if you look at the clip in isolation, it's her, walking onto a plane looking all kind of hobbled and weak-bodied, and then she falls over, and, looks like she needs a cane to continue forward. So, people are treating this as... Yeah, I don't know. They're making a huge deal out of it, but I'm trying to ferret out what the exact claim is, what the problem is here. Part of it is just that he's not a president, he's just a punk. It's like a petty thing. It's too petty for a president to do. And I kind of see that criticism. The U.S. presidency is not just the chief executive, it's also a head of state. It's like if the Queen of England put out these gifs of her being, the head of state is supposed to just maintain, a dignified position and present the country in well-mannered perspective. So I kind of see that it looks a little childish, and that's the face of our country doing that. But that is not news. That is just who Trump's been top to bottom. We've always been aware of that. But a lot of people on the left are, struggling to make this into a really big deal. One case in point, there was a CNN person named Cara Alamo. She wrote an article about how Trump stumbled into the Streisand Effect. Streisand Effect, for people at home, is where Barbra Streisand, there were some unflattering pictures published in a tabloid or whatever, and then she tried to sue them, used all the force of the law to try to force that out of the public consciousness, but as a result, it gained way more attention and way more people saw the photos. So this Cara Alamo is saying that Trump accidentally stumbled into that effect, and her evidence for that is that now all of a sudden people are reminded of, one, the election, of Hillary, of CNN's front page discussing evil memes, and about Hillary's health. So I don't know if she listed those out specifically, but this is what it turned the conversation to. So by him retweeting this GIF, it reminded people of the election and of the bitter hostilities between him and Hillary, and of Trump's easily greatest victory in the modern political mind. So that, to me, seems like all positive. He wants people thinking about him defeating Hillary. He does not want people thinking about Obamacare failing to pass. He does not want people thinking about wherever the tax plan is right now and how that's struggling through Congress. He wants people to think about him dominating Hillary. And then, the part about how... another thing this drew attention to is how it's on its face. When you first look at this GIF, it's like, it's a little playful. It's a little maybe cruel hearted. But you have these serious news writers talking about how this is a huge affront to humanity, blah, blah, blah. It reminds me of when the Anti-Defamation League declared Pepe a hate symbol, and that gave people who were not anti-Semites but did enjoy casually using that meme, it made them way more into that meme, right? They're attacking this, these credible, credentialed news people are expending all of their efforts on what feels like a simple, playful meme. And they're explaining all of the background, all the dog whistles behind it, how this means he supports beating women and this and that. All these kind of convoluted sets of logic as to why this thing, which feels to the average person when you watch it as just a no big deal playful thing, it's got their dander up. It's got these CNN people freaking out and over what seems to be nothing. So that again makes that element of the media look bad in Trump's favor. And this is something you don't even see mentioned in the CNN articles, but the people on the right will remember this as a reference to Hillary's health, which was an ongoing, because she had that concussion in 2012 that debilitated her for months. That's, according to her story, that's not a controverted statement right there. So he did this, he retweeted this thing, and I think it has been a PR, grand slam for him, because one, it reminds him of the subjects he wants people to be thinking of, and two, it makes his opposition in the media look fucking retarded for flipping out this hard over some simple little meme. Alright. It's a relatively small news story, but the next one that's getting all of the attention today is the Emmys. And the two main talking points from that are that, one, they were very anti-Trump. Like, Colbert hosted it, so he had a lot of jokes about how evil Trump is and blah, blah, blah. And the other story is that it's, like, historic in the number of, like, black people that won awards and that sort of stuff. So, let's take these one at a time. Just them purely attacking Trump, I'm not sure if that's going to be a negative or a positive, because there are sort of, it hits from both sides. Number one, the media does have a lot of power to influence people, and like the person you watch your comedy show for, and it's kind of like they're your friend. You tune into a sitcom, not necessarily to hear the best scripted jokes, but to check in on your buddies. That's a well understood aspect of what makes a sitcom work. And, there's a certain likability, a certain, they're your guys, they're your buddies. So when your buddies start telling you Trump is this evil monster, that's a pretty credible source for you to conclude that Trump is an evil monster. But at the same time, this is the Emmys, it's, other than the Oscars, it's like the most opulent. You go in these fancy dresses. You're all these top 0.001% people. They're all rich. They're all privileged. They're all having success at the highest level. And they're, just aesthetically, they're looking all fancy and rich. Those people are like, no, you shouldn't like Trump. You should adopt these opinions. You have the wrong opinions. So people who are kind of in the middle, the borderline undecided voter types, are just like, hey, fuck you, I'll make up my mind. You don't talk down to me like a child. So, from those two angles, it's hard to tell exactly what the net effect of this will be. I feel like it's probably negative, because the people who will respond to it positively are already pretty firmly anti-Trump. And the people who will respond to it negatively, there's a lot more overlap with the with the undecided types. The steel miners who were steel workers who were once voting for Democrats because of unions and are now voting for Trump because he doesn't want to put them out of business. So there's that aspect of it. And the other aspect is Donald Glover won an Emmy for directing. It's like the first black person to do that. And then there's like some black actress was the first, blah, blah, blah. So it's like a step forward for diversity. It's like a historic night in terms of the number of non-whites who won awards. And you see some articles covering that. Like Huffington Post had an article saying exactly that. But at the same time, you see articles like one on the Daily Beast. Well, and the gist of it was, yes, this is historic progress, but you, Hollywood, you were still racist in the past. So, I mean, don't focus on all this black progress. You should be thinking about white guilt. You should be thinking about how wrong you are. Oh, this was a night full of progress. Yeah, well, you used to discriminate against people. That, that's the vibe of it, and it comes across as really petty. But also, that's not 0% of their base that disagrees with that. I think, there's going to be a fair number of people who agree with that article. And this is part of, the postmodernism, the postmodernist philosophy on which pretty much all of the modern American left is based, does not allow for a coherent understanding, for, a fundamental explanation of things. It allows for an infinite number of fundamental explanations of things. So no matter what one person wants, and no matter what one group is able to achieve, there's always another person or group who's ostensibly on your same side who's going to attack you. Well, yes, it is true that this is historic progress for blacks, but it's also true that blacks were discriminated against in Hollywood in the past. So, while both articles are factually true, if it's something like, if this was a group like the social conservatives, they wouldn't need to worry that both of those facts are true. They would just find the one they're on board with, and they would follow that. So, it's just another example of the snake eating its own tail. But that, again, is not a huge news story. Which brings me to the huge news story. This last week, there were no huge news stories. It's like a slow news week. It feels eerie. Like on Reddit, for example, you go on The Donald. It's basically all memes and rehashing old stuff. Whereas you go on Our Politics, and for the folks at home, Our Politics is not about politics. It's just like a left-wing advocacy subreddit. All of their articles are about these minor inconsequential things, which only make sense through a filter of heavy confirmation bias. For example, Trump's polling in red states has dipped more than it has in other states. That's the type of thing where if you look at all of the polling data related to Trump, there are like a million different little sub-aspects there. And you're going to be able to find one that's negative to Trump and then talk about that. Whether that's significant, whether that's meaningful, that's a much bigger discussion. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Even if numbers are specifically true, the context through which you present them is really what matters. And this is one, basically, maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. There's not like a well-articulated reason why we should care about this. It's just like, yeah, fuck Trump! So they have stories like that. Or something like, hey, Mueller's investigation took another routine step forward. Therefore, Trump will be impeached. So these are the type of stories you see circulating that subreddit every time there's no good anti-Trump stories to talk about. So, and again, the Donald, the right-wing equivalent, is doing the same thing right now, where they're just talking about the stuff they're talking about when they have no real good things to point to. And it feels odd that we have this slow of a news week on both fronts. So my theory is thus. We just went through like a week and a half or so of hurricanes that were like real newsworthy hurricanes. Stuff that it was dominating the headlines. And those forced all of the minor political horse racing stories off of the front page. It like when Hurricane Harvey is flooding these people's houses and we're talking about how many are able to evacuate, or which, like, when there was that toddler found shivering, clutched in the arms of his dead mother who saved him from the drowning and stuff. When those are the stories you're talking about, it feels petty to attack Trump for some gif that is only offensive if you go through like 8 layers of interpretive analysis. So they weren't able to focus on that sort of stuff. So they just, ignore the partisan political headlines, focus on the hurricanes, and then we had enough hurricane coverage to where now that's starting to fade. There's now like Hurricane Maria, or that may be a thing, but overall the hurricane coverage is starting to fade, and it would feel disingenuous to jump right back in like, okay, we may have survived Hurricane Irma, but Mueller did a regular thing in his investigation. Therefore, everyone evacuate Florida. Just tonally, it would feel off. Jumping from all of this objectively newsworthy stuff back into the type of stuff that a lot of these rags have been claiming is newsworthy for the last months on end. So, it's kind of a slow news week. Not by design, but just by structure. I don't think anyone had planned to have their bullshit opinion pieces marketed as actual news stories, to have those stories displaced by the hurricane this way. So it's kind of an interesting development. I'm curious to see how people are going to react. So far, they're just not saying much. You have a few people out there, like I said, reacting to the golf thing, to the Twitter, the thing Trump retweeted. But there's a lot less of that right now. Just because they feel meaningless. They feel petty in comparison. The country is in a mood for actual news right now. We've become acclimated to it over the past couple weeks. And when you go back to trying to tell us that real news is that maybe 6 months from now, this unconfirmed leak will add to a step in Mueller's investigation, we just don't fucking care. Those stories aren't selling right now. So I think this definitely changed the tone of the political debate, because that has been that's been the tone for a while. The left wing's doing that, just over-reporting bullshit things that don't mean anything. Whereas the right wing is mostly just sort of scrambling. Like, Trump, he's okay. It's not that bad what he did. Like, they're scrambling to kind of apologize. And you see some people that are just, like, fervently backing him up. Like the Sean Hannitys and whatnot. But for the most part, most of the right-wing media is trying to make sense of all of the rapid movements in the Trump administration in a way where it feels rational. It feels okay that this guy's president. And they don't have to do that right now. there's not a need for them. There's not a vacuum that they need to fill, where the left wing is every week, hey, Trump is about to be impeached, blah, 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 blah. They don't need to be like, oh, no, he's not going to be impeached because blah, blah, blah. So neither side is appropriate, neither side feels appropriate doing just these bullshit political racehorse stories, pushing them to the front page like they're the Armageddon. Because we just did something that feels a lot like Armageddon. And we will see where this goes, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in to Carlin The Morning. You guys have a good one.